It was very personal. I lost my mother to Alzheimer's disease in 2001. And I turned to poetry as a way to make sense of it. So I'd like to read you a little bit from the preface to the collection, and then I'll talk a little bit about the process. She was still in good physical health, so her death from this disease seemed all the more tragic. For my family, her illness had been a slow process of subtraction, as we lost her one brain cell, one synapse at a time. She had been an articulate, vivacious woman, and we had to watch her lose not just her memory, but all that went with it. Intelligence, judgment, dignity, all that we believe makes us conscious human beings. As the disease took away more and more of the person I had known as my mother, I had to look hard to see what was left. Writing poems made it possible to see that even in the darkest stretches, there were still moments of grace. Her delight in seeing the scarlet flash of a cardinal at the feeder, rare glimmers of recognition in her blue eyes, funny conversations as the letters of her alphabet piled up. The losses may have been beyond imagining, but so too were the unexpected gifts. Because she no longer had a past or a future, she showed us how to live in the present. Writing poems became a way to witness honestly, while reminding me to dwell in the present alongside my mother. I began to look for other writing that might help me through this uncharted terrain. Each time I found a poem in which it was clear the writer knew the territory, I felt less alone. When I began to share the poems I'd written about my mother at readings, I came to realize how prevalent this disease is by the fact that a knot of people always gathered afterward to tell me the story of their mother, father, husband, wife, sister, or brother. I began envisioning a collection of poems that might serve. So I went ahead and by the time the deadline came in July, I had over 500 submissions. So I had the luxury of being able to choose among all of these beautiful pieces and really choose what would work best.
And it's dedicated to a friend of our family. And though she had the diagnosis of Alzheimer's, she refused to give up her rituals to the diagnosis. And I always really rather admired her because she'd set out, her mission was to buy cookies. That was her ritual. But she would set out not knowing for sure if she would arrive home, if she could remember how to get home, or what would happen. And I thought that took a certain kind of bravery, so I wrote a poem about it. It's called Everyday Cookies. Glory's come, a woman of questions who's losing all her answers. Where are they, Sarah? I've come to buy my everyday cookies. Glory drops uninvited into a kitchen chair, crosses her dried bacon arms on an old flat iron chest, and smirks. Because she's remembered Sarah's home-baked rule that some cookies are good enough for every day, others meant for company alone with nuts, Rice Krispies, oatmeal, chocolate, flour, butter, and salt. Fixing a stare on Sarah's plate of sliced salami, Glory pushes a fork into the red flesh, picks out the round chunks of pepper, and rolls them like BBs across the tablecloth. Do you remember my Billy, Sarah? Died the day before our 55th wedding anniversary. Do I have sons, Sarah? Children? Somewhere? I've lost their names. She counts the black pepper grains into the bowl of a stainless steel spoon, dropping the numbers like the names of the children she can't remember. What do I owe you for a tin of your everyday cookies, Sarah? She opens her black casket purse and pulls out a $20 bill, uses it to scratch at her stiff white hair, a green butterfly poking chicken feathers. The bill bends, then falls, is sucked under the table by the heavy breathing dog. Then Glory's gone. 100 pounds of old woman leaving with 5 pounds of everyday cookies under her arm. She guns the motor of Billy's Pontiac and hangs a wrinkled self on the wheel. All 4 windows open to August fading light, hair whiplash by window wind, she drives fast and furious, White pearls chattering at her neck like false teeth, powdered face growing bright in the rising dashboard light. She's determined to outrun forgetfulness and make it home without a stop. And I always like to think that the message that she leaves us with is that we need to eat our everydays like sweet cookies until our tin runs empty too. Thank you.
And the last poem I'm going to read is mine. For about 26 years, I paid insurance claims. For 8 years, I paid long-term care claims. This came from that time. You had to, in order to pay the claim, you had to read the nurse's notes and the medical records. And so you were right there in the room with the person. This one is early Alzheimer's. Emma set her kitchen on fire because she forgot she was cooking. But the water gushing through the ceiling for the bath she forgot she was taking put it out.
I said, I didn't really write, I recorded for my father-in-law who passed away with Alzheimer's. This is for Harry Daisy. Now that we know that Harry has Alzheimer's, we catch ourselves wondering out loud about our own memories, searching for that small void in our understanding of time's continuum. This cruel wound that delicately, as some evil surgeon, unseals the mute gray bindings that hold ineffably the inventory of a life, stuns us again and again with horrific wonder, leaving us with facial expressions not unlike his, as he turns his bent spade again and again, like some blind farmer through the rough weed-filled furrows of recollection and recognition. At the Garden Cafe, Ruth, stately still, abruptly asked him in that wifely way, "Would you like tea or coffee, Harry?" "Harry, do you want tea or coffee?" Then the realization, oh, give him tea. An acquaintance happens by the table, and Ruth graciously, dutifully introduces her to Harry, who as always smiles affably and responds, "I'm not really here, you know." Later, I accompany him to the men's room, where he becomes confused and begins to wash his hands before entering the small, dark stall with its endless row of blank, white sheets of paper. Standing before the sink, he stares with what appears to be rapt erudition into the mirror and whispers in that familiar, gentle, fatherly tone, "He wants to come back, you know. He wants to come back. And they won't let him."
I'm very lucky to have Tess Gallagher, who's a wonderful poet, and if you don't know her work, you should look it up. She wrote the foreword for this collection, and she also cared for her mother with Alzheimer's disease for 17 years. And during the time she was caring for her mother, she was also undergoing treatment for breast cancer. So she's an amazing writer and an amazing person as well. And she couldn't come to Houston to read. I wish she could have, but she's in Ireland right now, and I just wanted to read a little bit from what she wrote as well. We tend to think those with Alzheimer's are the beneficiaries of our beneficence and mercies. But rather, in the wild unknowns they suffer, those with Alzheimer's draw from us heart meat. In the same way that the poetry and stories we find unforgettable pass into us and become an essential element of our bodily and spiritual knowledge, our encounters with Alzheimer's can lift us, even when they are most dire, precisely because they courageously enact, under duress, what moves us, what makes us feel crushed or abandoned, tender and longing for things to be otherwise.